There is one thing a narcissist will never say out loud. One thing they will spend their entire life hiding behind charm, behind rage, behind silence, and behind tears that only show up when it is convenient for them. Here it is. The narcissist is not afraid of your anger. They are not afraid of your tears. They are not afraid of your threats to walk away. They have already survived all of that 100 times before. So, what genuinely terrifies them, what shakes the dark foundation inside their mind, is the moment you stop reacting. The moment you finally see them clearly, the moment your eyes stop begging and start simply watching. Because in that instant, something they have leaned on for years falls apart. The fantasy breaks, and whatever pattern of manipulation, control, and quiet domination has been feeding off you suddenly realizes it is looking at someone it can no longer feed on. That is the moment the narcissist starts behaving in strange and very specific ways. And once you learn to spot those ways, you will understand something most people never figure out in their whole lives. The narcissist was never the powerful one. You were. They just made sure you never found that out. Before we go further, do something for yourself. If you have ever been manipulated, gaslit, or emotionally drained by someone who claimed they loved you, follow this channel right now. Not for me, for you. Because what comes next may change the way you see every narcissist you have ever known. Most people never realize that narcissists do not run on love or logic or even hate. They run on control. Control is their oxygen. Control is the only thing that quiets the emptiness inside them. And the way they get that control is by studying you. They study your fears, your hopes, your wounds, your loneliness, and your need to be understood. Then they position themselves as the answer to everything you have ever felt was missing. That is why the relationship felt magical at the start. It was not love, it was reconnaissance. They were mapping your soul so they could later use it against you. And the moment you start to heal, the moment you start to know yourself again, that map becomes useless and their power starts to die. And that is when their behavior begins to shift in ways that can feel almost strange to watch. Pay close attention here because this part changes everything. When a narcissist senses their grip on you is loosening, they do not respond with reflection. They respond with panic, dressed up as dominance. They suddenly turn cold or suddenly turn overly sweet. They pull away without any explanation, or they flood you with attention you never asked for. They start arguments over nothing. They bring up old wounds. They accuse you of things you never did. They rewrite history right in front of you, expecting you to flinch, to doubt yourself, and to fold back into the small shape they once carved for you. And when you do not fold, when you stay still, when your eyes stay calm, something inside them starts to unravel because their whole identity depends on your reaction. Without your reaction, in a way, they stop existing. Here is the part nobody talks about. The narcissist is not a strong person pretending to be weak. The narcissist is a deeply frightened person pretending to be a god. Underneath the arrogance, the cruelty, and the cold distance, there is a child who never learned how to feel safe inside their own skin. That is why they need to dominate. That is why they need to humiliate. That is why they need to be admired, feared, obeyed, and never questioned. And when someone like you, someone who has done the inner work, someone who has started to value themselves, walks into their life and refuses to bow down, the narcissist feels something close to pure existential horror. Because for the first time, they are forced to feel the very thing they have spent their entire life running from. Their own emptiness, their own smallness, their own shame. And what happens next tells you everything you need to know. The first sign that a narcissist is losing their grip on you is sudden, irrational rage. Not anger that makes sense. Rage that erupts out of nowhere, wildly out of proportion, often aimed at something small. A tone of voice, a delayed reply, a boundary you set gently, a moment you did not laugh at their joke. That rage was never really about what you did. It was about what you did not give them. You did not give them fear. You did not give them submission. You did not give them the emotional supply they were used to pulling from you. So they escalate because in their distorted mind, if charm no longer works, then intimidation must. And if intimidation does not work either, then destruction will. The second sign is sudden withdrawal. The silent treatment, the cold shoulder, the disappearing act, the blank stare across the room. To someone untrained in this, it looks like indifference. But what is actually happening inside them is the opposite of calm. They are punishing you. They are trying to make you feel invisible, abandoned, and desperate. They are testing whether that old wound inside you, the wound of not feeling loved, not feeling chosen, not feeling like enough, is still strong enough to drag you back to them on your knees. And if you stay grounded, if you do not chase them, if you do not break the silence first, you have just done something a narcissist cannot tolerate. You have shown them that their absence does not destroy you. And that is a wound to their ego that they will carry for a very long time. But here is where it gets even darker. The third sign is blame shifting that turns almost theatrical. Suddenly, every problem in the relationship is your fault. Every cruel word that came out of their mouth happened because you provoked it. Every lie they told was your fault because you did not trust them enough. Every act of betrayal happened because you did not love them the right way. This is not really an argument. This is a psychological operation. The narcissist is trying to reinstall the old software of guilt, shame, and self-doubt back into your mind. Because without that software running quietly in the background, you become unreachable. You become unbreakable. You become free. And freedom in someone they used to control is the one thing they cannot allow to exist in peace. The fourth sign is the smear campaign. When every attempt at internal manipulation fails, the narcissist turns outward. They start talking about you to friends, to family, to coworkers, sometimes even to your own children. They paint you as crazy, unstable, cold, selfish, and ungrateful. They flip the story so cleanly that even people who have known you for years start looking at you with confusion. And here is what most people who go through this never fully understand. The smear campaign is not really an attack on your reputation. It is an attempt to rebuild the cage. Because if they can convince the world that you are the problem, then maybe, just maybe, they can convince you of that too. The smear campaign is really just the desperate roar of a predator who has lost its prey. If any of this is hitting home, if this is reaching something deep in you, follow this channel right now because everything you are about to hear is going to help you take back what was taken from you. Drop one word in the comments below. Just one word. Awake. So I know you are still with me because this next part is where the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Most people never realize that emotional independence is the single most threatening force in a narcissist's life. Not money, not status, not even the threat of you leaving. Emotional independence. The moment you stop needing their approval, their validation, their attention, or their permission to feel okay about yourself, you have effectively cut the cord they were feeding through. And a narcissist without a feeding source becomes a deeply unstable creature. That is why they get more aggressive, not less, when you start to heal. Because in their mind, your healing is their starvation. Your peace is their famine. Your self-respect is their exile. They do not want you well. They want you dependent. They want you reactive. The healthier you become, the more dangerous you become to the version of you they built inside their own head. Pay attention here, because this part changes everything too. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are mirrors. And a narcissist cannot stand mirrors. Every time you set a boundary, no matter how gently you say it, you force them to see themselves clearly. You force them to face the fact that you have a self, a soul, a center that exists outside of them and was never theirs to command. That is unbearable for them because in their internal world, you were never really a separate person. You existed as a function of supply, of admiration, of emotional regulation for them. And when that function suddenly says no, when that function starts having a life of its own, the narcissist feels something close to a betrayal of massive proportions. That is why they react to boundaries the same way most people react to actual violence. Because to them, a boundary feels exactly like violence. Your no is the destruction of their entire universe. Here is the part nobody talks about. Underneath every narcissistic behavior, underneath every insult, every silent treatment, every guilt trip, every lie, every smear, and every burst of rage, there is one single emotion at the root of it all: fear. The narcissist is afraid always, constantly. Underneath the mask, they live in a state of ongoing psychological dread. Dread of being exposed, dread of being truly seen, dread of being ordinary, dread of being abandoned. Dread of realizing that the self they built is actually hollow inside. And the only way they know how to manage that dread is to push it outward, to make someone else carry it for them. That someone for years was you. And the reason your healing terrifies them so deeply is because the moment you put down the fear they handed you, they have no choice left but to feel it themselves, and they would rather destroy you than feel it. And what happens next reveals the truth. Once you understand this, you start to see every single behavior of the narcissist in a brand new light. The rage is not strength, it is panic. The silence is not power, it is punishment born out of fear. The blame shifting is not confidence, It is a desperate attempt to keep the mask glued to their face. The smear campaign is not real influence. It is the sound of someone losing their grip completely. Suddenly, the giant you were once afraid of starts to look like exactly what they always were, a frightened person screaming inside a costume. And once you see that clearly, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, you can no longer be controlled by it. But here is where it gets even darker. The narcissist's deepest fear is not you leaving. It is you becoming someone they can no longer recognize, because the version of you they pretended to love was the version that needed them, the version that doubted itself, the version that apologized too quickly, the version that gave too much, forgave too easily, and stayed too long. When you become someone who knows their own worth, someone who walks calmly, speaks clearly, sets boundaries without guilt, and chooses peace over chaos, that person becomes a stranger to them. And strangers cannot be manipulated with old wounds because old wounds belong to old versions of you. The new you has rewritten the rules, and the narcissist simply cannot read the new language. This is why healing is the greatest threat a narcissist will ever face. Not revenge, not exposure, not even abandonment. Healing, because revenge can be twisted into a story about your cruelty. Exposure can be reframed as your bitterness. Abandonment can be rewritten as their own freedom from you. But healing cannot be touched. Healing cannot be spun. Healing cannot be argued with. A healed person is a sealed door. A healed person does not engage, does not chase, does not beg, does not explain, and does not perform. A healed person simply lives. And in that quiet living, the narcissist sees something they cannot have and cannot become. Nothing in this world haunts a narcissist more than watching the person they try to destroy walk calmly into a life of peace they themselves are incapable of building. Pay close attention here because this part changes everything. Self-respect is the most quiet, most devastating weapon you will ever own. Not loud self-respect, quiet internal self-respect, the kind that does not need to be announced, the kind that simply will not bend. When you respect yourself, manipulation has no surface left to grip onto. Guilt trips slide right off you. Gaslighting does not enter you because you trust your own perception more than their version of reality. Flattery does not move you because your self-worth no longer needs to be borrowed from someone else's words. Threats do not shake you because you have already lost the fear of losing what was hurting you in the first place. Self-respect makes you unreachable in all the places the narcissist used to walk freely. And here is what no one ever told you. You were not weak for being manipulated. You were open. You were trusting. You were loving in a world that taught you to expect love in return. The narcissist did not target you because you were broken. They targeted you because you were luminous, because you had something they could never generate on their own. Warmth, depth, empathy, loyalty, a soul that could actually feel. They came to you not to give but to take, because they could never create what you already were. And the day you truly understand that, the day you stop seeing yourself as the victim of their cleverness and start seeing yourself as the source of the very light they were trying to steal, something inside you shifts permanently. You stop grieving the relationship. You start grieving the years, and then slowly you stop grieving altogether because you realize you were never the one who lost. You were the one who survived. So when you see a narcissist suddenly raging over nothing, suddenly withdrawing into silence, suddenly rewriting every story to make you the villain, suddenly running to others to paint you as unstable, or suddenly love-bombing you out of nowhere after weeks of cruelty, do not see chaos. See confession. See an entire psychology breaking down right in front of you. See the truth that they are afraid of you. Of the version of you that finally woke up. Of the version of you that finally stopped flinching. That version of you is not someone they can manipulate. That version of you is someone they have to flee from. And the moment they do, you will know, perhaps for the first time in years, that the power was never really theirs. It was always yours. They just borrowed it from you under false pretenses, and the lease has finally run out. You do not need to confront them. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to win an argument. They will never let you win. You only need to keep healing, keep growing, and keep standing in the quiet, unshakable truth of who you are. Because every day you choose yourself, every day you honor your own peace, every day you refuse to shrink, you are doing something far more powerful than any revenge could ever achieve. You are becoming the one thing a narcissist can never be: free, truly, deeply, soulfully free. And freedom once tasted can never be unlearned. If this reached you, if even one sentence landed somewhere deep inside you, do not let this moment pass without honoring it. Follow this channel, like this video, and leave a comment sharing one word that describes how you feel right now. Your healing is not a private event, it is a quiet revolution. Keep choosing yourself, because the version of you on the other side of this healing is someone the old you would not even recognize. And that version of you is closer than you think. Follow, breathe, and step into your power. The world has been waiting for you to come home to. And here is something most healers will not tell you out loud because they are afraid it sounds too harsh. The narcissist did not randomly find you. They auditioned dozens of people before they landed on you. They watched how you treated a stranger. They watched how you responded to silence. They watched how you reacted to a small lie. And when they noticed that your kindness had a threshold, when they noticed that your empathy had a boundary but a soft one, when they noticed that your loyalty could be mistaken for weakness, they knew you were the one, not because you were weak, but because you were good in a world that quietly punishes good people for being good. That is the cruel joke of the narcissist. They do not prey on the broken. They prey on the bright. They prey on the ones who still believe in love, who still give second chances, who still look for the best in someone even when the worst is staring them right in the face. They target your goodness because your goodness is the one thing they will never have and the one thing they desperately need to borrow for as long as you let them. Do not miss this next part because it is where everything comes together. The day you stop giving second chances to people who have already used up their first 10, the day you stop explaining yourself to someone who only hears their own voice, the day you stop twisting yourself into a shape that fits a person who was never going to love the shape you were already in, something fundamental shifts inside the dynamic. The narcissist loses their leverage, they lose their stage, they lose their audience, and for someone whose entire personality is a performance, losing the audience is not just uncomfortable, it is identity collapse. That is why, when you pull away quietly, without drama, without revenge, without a single harsh word, the narcissist often reacts louder than they ever did when you were still chasing them. Because silence from someone who used to fill their silence is the loudest sound in their world. Listen carefully here because almost no one talks about this. There is a version of you that does not need to announce their healing. There is a version of you that simply stops showing up the way you used to. You stop checking your phone to see if they finally texted. You stop rehearsing what you will say the next time they start the argument. You stop wondering if today is the day they will finally see you. And in that quiet withdrawal of your energy, the narcissist does not feel relief. They feel abandonment of the worst kind. The kind where the supply walks away with a smile and never looks back. That kind of leaving breaks something inside them that no amount of new targets will ever repair. Because you were not just a source to them. You were the proof that their mask worked. You were the evidence that the fantasy they sold was still believable. And when you stop believing it, the entire illusion collapses, and they are left standing alone in a costume that no one is applauding anymore. So if you are watching this and you feel that quiet stir inside you, that small flicker of recognition that says, yes, this is me, this is what happened to me, this is what I survived, hold on to that flicker. Do not let the noise of your daily life talk you out of it. Do not let the voice of an old version of you say it is too late to change. It is not too late. You are not too late. You are exactly on time. The version of you that was once tangled up in their chaos is already loosening. The version of you that once apologized for things you never did is already learning to stay silent. The version of you that once chased love that was never coming is already learning to love yourself in a way that no one on this earth can ever revoke. Keep going. Keep healing. Keep breathing. Because the life waiting for you on the other side of this is not smaller, it is not sadder, it is not emptier. It is the fullest, loudest, brightest, most honest version of you that has ever existed. And that version is not afraid of any narcissist on this planet. That version of you is what the narcissist has always been most afraid of. Not your anger, not your tears, not your threats, your quiet, steady, unshakable knowing of who you are.